So this is based upon a question I was asked on Quora about why people leave Japan after 5 or 6 years, even though it's considered such a great country. I don't want to quote it, verbatim, but it gives a really nice overview of, my thoughts on it. So, I was stationed in Japan for 7.5 years, and I lived a very charmed existence. I had the privilege of only experiencing the best parts of my own culture and the best parts of Japanese culture. Essentially, I worked in America because it was an American base. I was in the US Navy, and I lived in Japan. I could eat American food every day. I could buy American clothes at a discount, which is great because I'm huge. Then when I stepped off base, I lived in Japan. I had a big, beautiful apartment right off of Mikasa Park in Yokosuka, right outside Yokosuka Naval Base. I could run alongside the harbor every single day, and it was all paid for by the Navy. Japanese women would often seek out, Navy guys because it's a large collection of foreign men.
Hey, give me.
Right outside the Navy base, so I didn't really have to try that hard to meet women. I was only conversationally fluent after the better part of a decade. I never had to worry about being lonely because I had this huge expat/military community around me. I had tons of money to spend and essentially no responsibilities apart from my job. The problem is that all changed when I got out of the military and started going to university in Tokyo. Suddenly, I lived in this tiny apartment, essentially in the middle of nowhere on the boundary between Tokyo and Saitama, and the apartment itself was overpriced because I was a foreigner. Every 2 years, I had to give a 90,000 yen gift to my landowner, or my landlord, and that's roughly $900 US. That was just a gift. The apartment itself was like $600, which is more than my mortgage here in the Philippines. And it was the size of a freaking broom closet. During my first 6 months, I was questioned by the police frequently because my neighbors found me suspicious. I would go for long, solitary walks at night carrying a backpack, so logically, people thought I was selling drugs. I don't blame them for thinking I was suspicious. I was, just that was the reality. Also, I'm 6 foot, 240 pounds. I have tattoos. If you don't know me, I can be kind of intimidating. And on more than one occasion, I was, completely searched, completely through my backpack in front of crowds of people. One time I was actually waiting for a friend outside of a train station and they searched me. In reality, I was dealing with severe anxiety from social isolation, acute stress from separating from the military. I lost the structure around me. I barely had enough money to survive on, let alone have a social life, which before I got out of the Navy, I had a very rich social life. I was out in the bars almost every night. I had my friends I worked with. Everywhere I went, I had friends. In Tokyo, I had nobody. I started having daily panic attacks, and I was even hospitalized 3 times. But the way that Japan works, hospitals aren't open 24/7. So even though I was in the emergency room, they told me to come back during normal working hours. So I never got an official diagnosis. So this slowed down the whole process with the VA. I eventually just lost interest in Japanese culture and learning the Japanese language. My language skills just completely diminished. My only job prospects for the foreseeable future were, being an English teacher, and I couldn't even get a call back for that. So after university, I just decided to leave because Japan isn't a perfect country. That's what seems to confuse people about Japan, because a lot of people in Western cultures kind of hold it up as this denizen utopia of equality, and it's just another country. It's safer and has a better infrastructure than most countries, but it's still just a country, and it's not for everybody. The reason most people stay past, I'd say, a decade, because that's when, like in the military, that's when you finish your first 2 tours and do your shore duty. That, or especially in my case, or if you're working in Japan and you come at 18, you're in your late 20s and you want to start making moves. I'm not saying everybody, gets married and that's the reason they stay. A lot of people, really enjoy the culture or the culture. But that is the primary chain that links somebody to a temporal place, is marriage, or at least children. And marriage is where the term honeymoon phase comes from, and that's what happens with Japan. You go through the honeymoon phase, then you realize it's another place, and then it's time to leave. So eventually I simply realized Japan wasn't for me, and now I live in the Philippines with my wife and family. And these were edits I added to the end of the question, because I got a really harsh comment about going to the emergency room when I wasn't really sick. But when I went to the emergency room, I went because I thought I was having a heart attack or an aneurysm, because I had just been diagnosed with high blood pressure and I was experiencing severe health anxiety. So, and that's the thing, most people don't go to the emergency room for a panic attack. They think they're having a health crisis. And the fact that they essentially kicked me out without giving me a diagnosis or any paperwork I could submit to the VA, Veterans Affairs, is another reason why Japan simply wasn't a good place for me. Also, as far as getting searched by the police, this stopped after 6 months when everybody got used to me. And I was 99% of the time I was walking around drinking so that I could exhaust myself and just fall asleep when I got back to my tiny apartment. So that's pretty much it for this video. I kind of wanted to try getting back into long form videos, so hopefully I get a good reaction from this. So bye.